Yes, welcome to another episode of Human Performance Talks, where we talk about habits, tricks, hacks, mindset, everything you need to live your life in line with your true potential, right? Because that's the question that we want to answer. How do you perform at your best, right? But not in a productivity way, not in a way that burns you out, but as a human being. How do you perform at your best as a human being? And of course, we are high performers, so productivity matters to us, but it's of course part of the bigger picture. So today I have my guest Anna Steinzeig, my dear friend also, who is an awesome neuroscientist who also focuses on this area specifically, but of course with the lens of a neuroscientist, which is amazing. So Anna, can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I indeed have a neuroscience background, but I don't do research anymore. Currently, I work as a speaker and consultant in workplace performance, well-being area. So I'm highly interested in the topic of today and certainly have something to say about that. So let's dive in.
Awesome. All right, cool. So, Anna, what are we going to talk about today? What is the topic of our show?
Well, you had a very good suggestion. We decided to start from the beginning, from the morning, and
From the
discuss morning
morning.
routine. Yeah,
Yeah,
discuss morning routines.
yeah. So, yeah, we always talk about morning routines, and we're also sometimes texting, and we're the same wavelength. So, some people are more morning persons, some people are more evening persons, of course. I'm a big fan of morning routines because it sets you up for the day, but also because if you design your morning routine in a certain way, it can materially benefit your life, every aspect of it, your growth, your health, your wealth, everything. Because you just have to think about what habits do I need to incorporate in my morning routine that can help me advance in this area. And if you do that, you wake up every day. So it's easy to create the habits because you already have that anchor in the morning. So there's a lot of reasons why I love a morning routine. And of course I'm curious, yeah, are you a morning person or are you more of an evening person?
Well, I'm neither, and actually there are way more nuances than a night owl and an early bird.
Hmm.
My uh, genotype, my genetic test, and my Oura ring both says that I'm in the middle. I'm like late morning person.
Mm.
And that's funny because we just discussed it in the morning over breakfast with my family, and that besides this, like the setup inclination that you have genetically, because that's a genetic thing. We also change our chronotype over the time, over the lifespan, because the young children they tend to be more early type than teenagers. They like to stay late at night, and then you actually have a time where you can actually live to your chronotype as an adult. And then when you get older, you tend to become an early bird again. That's funny.
Mm. So it changes over your lifetime.
Hmm.
And you also mentioned already a few terms. So you said genetically and
Chronotype, this is your
yeah,
time.
but before
So,
that, you said something
yeah.
about I'm genetically and something else shows that I'm more in the middle. So what was the something else?
Well, the one thing I did a genetic test that shows you chronotype,
Mm-hmm.
but also I have my ring, the
Mm.
health tracker ring, and it calculates over time based on your habits.
Mm-hmm.
What is your ideal sleep window? And they were like perfectly aligned with my
Mm.
genetic test.
Funny,
And I
funny.
think it's very important. It's very important to know what is yours because you optimally work within your wake time. And
Yeah,
if your routine is not allowing for that, that probably well you need to be aware and maybe you can do something about that.
yeah, yeah. And this is something I want to come back to because our society is not designed to operate in your perfect window. For most, not. And if you are a lark, like an evening person, even less so. But coming back to the genetic testing, there's something you said that could be perceived as conflicting. So you said, I did genetic testing to find out what my chronotype is, but genetic suggests that it's fixed, right? It's part of your genes. But you also mentioned that your chronotype changes throughout your life. When you're young, your chronotype is different than when you get older, and they shift. So what is your thought on that? Like, should we all get a genetic test to find out, or don't we need it? Or what's your take on that?
Well, it's not that I had a genetic test just to figure out my chronotype. The chronotype was just one of the parts of the genetic test, and I just found it funny. But of course, you feel, I think, if you live, like, let's say, I think that's a good test. What is your go to bed and wake up time on vacation when you're not restricted with anything? Like, what is your natural tendency? I guess that if you know your natural tendency, that it's going to be a chronotype. Do you tend to stay late? Well, that's a little bit a tricky one, because I can imagine if you have this very strong habit of scrolling social media or watching series on Netflix, then you might be staying late, even if it goes totally against your chronotype. But let's imagine you don't have this heavy habit and you're not restricted with the early, I don't know, like school schedule, for example. Then I think you can easily figure out what your natural tendency is.
Yeah, I love that because it's very practical, and I agree. I think we don't need a lot of the testing. It's fun, it's nice, it gives you insight, but I don't think we need it in often. And maybe sometimes it even disconnects you from what you're feeling. So in terms of morning routine, so most people have a conditioned morning routine, a conditioned routine, a conditioned sleep and wake routine, because for years and decades maybe they had to wake up at a certain point of the day because they get to work or to school or whatever. So they might not be aware of what their preferred wake and bedtime is. But if you start listening to the signals of your body, meaning when you get sleepy, prepare for sleep, and then you'll see that if you do that, you'll wake up without your alarm clock at some point. And when you do, then you are getting to your natural circadian rhythm, and you can get a little bit of a sense what your chronotype is. But in order to do that, that's all. So if I work on morning routines with my clients, I always start with evening routines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they are part of the same thing. You need to go
Yeah.
to bed to wake up earlier. So and to do that, you have to have a routine that allows you to and supports you for good sleep. So I would say, like, if you want to find out your morning routine after you have dinner, maybe watch some TV, but maybe around 8 o'clock or something, start to tune it down, because especially, and this is another point I want to come back to, when the sun starts setting, you start to feel woozy a little bit. You start to feel a little bit sleepy. But if you start watching TV again, or work on your computer, or work on your phone, at some point the sleepiness is gone because you're awake again. Like you just get like an artificial boost. If you don't do that, you get sleepy. At some point, you cannot keep your eyes open, and maybe you'll go to bed at 9 o'clock. And then you go to bed at 9 o'clock, and you wake up at 5:30, and you're like, I'm awake. And then you start to realize, like, oh, wait a minute, this is my chronotype right now. And from there on, you can start working on what to do during the morning and what to do during the evening. But that's, I think, a good and practical way of finding out what is my preferred wake-up time, my natural wake-up time. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that it's all good to do it, but in my case, my natural wake up time is 8 in the morning, which I, as a mom of two, absolutely cannot afford. So it's good for me to know, and when I can, I try to follow my internal rhythm. But I have to live my life differently. So I have to go to bed earlier than I would prefer to, and I have to wake up earlier than I would prefer to. And my morning routines, depending, I think there cannot be or should not be one morning routine that is suitable for every morning. But I have a set of morning routines that support me in living not in my ideal chronotype most of the year.
All right. So this is, of course, something that I hear a lot from my clients. Life. I
Yeah,
have young
exactly.
kids. Yeah, life. I have young kids. Not everybody is a bachelor like me who can decide every minute of every day. So, so this, of course, is a very practical obstacle for people. Um, at the same time, yeah, an obstacle is, of course, always something you can solve. You always have to stay in this mindset of how can I solve this? How can I work around this? And something you mentioned, like if you are not a morning person, it's per definition more difficult because life is not designed around that. So, for example, I woke up today 5:30. I have at least 2.5 hours of nothing. Nobody will
Mm.
call me. There's
Yeah.
no sound outside. Like this is my sanctuary. And after that, life starts to happen. Um, but what I wanted to come back to is if this is the case, and if your chronotype is either an evening person or a night owl, or you are more in the middle, can you shift your wake and sleep time?
Well, you certainly can. You certainly can. So what I do to because when we are in these school routines, the everyday routine most of the year, I need to wake up 7 is the latest, but then there is no time for my morning routine. So I tend to wake up 6:30 to have some me time before, I go into this mom's mode where I need to make the breakfast and the lunch box and, all this stuff and drive kids to school. Um, so yeah, for that I watch out closely my evening routine. So I then need to go to bed when I maybe not naturally ready to, but you can set up things to make you more prone to be sleepy, even if it's not your ideal window. Just remove the screens, remove everything exciting, read a book, I don't know, breathe, watch the sunset, and all these things you can shift. You won't be in your ideal one, but if you set up, that's very important with everything sleep related. You need to have a schedule, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
stick to this schedule. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is ideal, because then you set up your internal clock to function within a certain window, even if it's not your natural or your ideal one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is, of course, something. So, a schedule. So, a lot of people and a lot of our clients, they are highly intelligent. So, they know a lot. They are pretty much know everything that we're talking about. But this is also something very difficult and it causes stress. For example, a schedule. So, they're like, I know I need to adhere to my schedule. So, I need to sleep now. So, I cannot do this. And it becomes stressful. And then it basically negates the point because it should not be stressful. It should be
Yes.
restorative, right? So I
Yeah.
think that the theory about having a schedule is very is valid and it's
Mm.
true. But I think you should not be rigid about that schedule. You should just try to keep that schedule, but not. It's not so mandatory that you have to be in bed before whatever.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, another thing. So of course, I always talk about ADHD as a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take that as somebody who has a lot of ideas, one of the worst things you can do if you identify with that in the evening is start working on your ideas because that's like your brain is like the happy mode, like the dopamine happy mode. One idea is cascading in another idea. Before you know, you're like, you know what? Let me get behind the computer, and then it's like, oh, this is fun. And you get into hyper mode. And when you get into hyper mode, there's no way you're going to sleep, right? Then it's probably at 2 or 3 o'clock that you're sleeping. And if you keep doing that, then you're burning yourself out slowly because you cannot wake, and maybe you probably are going to get a coffee because you have to function. So yeah, and this is the way most people live. They need coffee to function. But so if you identify like this, I would say I get it, because I also have lots of ideas in the evening sometimes, but I have systems to capture my ideas, right? And at some point, for example, if I'm reading a newsletter, which is super exciting about AI or something, it's gonna trigger more ideas. So I should not read that newsletter after a certain point in time. Same with books. If I read a book about personal development in the evening, I want to go research stuff. I want to go watch stuff. I want to go read. So I do it in the morning because that's time to actively engage with those. So I really design my evening routine. And of course, I'm a human being, so sometimes I ignore my own advice. But in general, I keep this in mind when I design. Like, I need to start preparing my brain to turn off. And one of the ways is not engaging with my ideas, but also dumping them, like capturing them in a certain system, so that they don't keep playing out in my mind. So yeah, that's a trick I use. But when we come back to the shifting of your morning routine, of the shifting of your wake rhythm, um, I did the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And in the book, the 5 a.m. Club, afterwards he mentions do the 66-day challenge. And 66 days is the optimum time that it takes to create a habit. That's what they say. And he divides it into 3 periods. It's like 21 days, messy, difficult, you're going to suffer. Then the second 21 days, you're excited. Because you can feel the difference, but it's still messy. And then after 21 days, the last 21 days, am I still on? No, I don't know, like 20 something days. You're getting into habit. So now it's easy. Now there is a rhythm. Now there's consistency, and this is something that helped me a lot with shifting my window, because it's hard at the beginning, and you suffer. And you worry that you're getting sleep deprived, and you worry that you're not functioning right, and then you quit because you're like, no, this is not good for me. Like, but if you know, like, hey, the first 21 days is pretty much suffering, it's not gonna be easy. It gives you something to prepare for and expect. That helped me shifting my morning routine, and I am a morning person, so. For me, it wasn't that difficult, but it was still difficult. Like waking up 5 a.m. instead of 6:30 is still a big difference, right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever tried to shift your wake time consciously?
Yeah, of course. As I said, like I'm doing it all the time because I have
Yeah.
to. There is no, but I must say that my evening time is not on. I don't own my time fully, and my evening time is also like you want to have life at least a little bit after the kids are asleep. As a parent, like every parent knows that.
Yeah.
So I tend to maybe go to bed a little bit later than I could because I just want to have this me time and to read this book.
Sure. Yeah.
you know, but yeah, this is all I do, and
I love this.
my morning routines, they are built around supporting me in what I need that morning, depending on the time of the year and depending on the place I'm in. Because as I said, there is no just one morning routine that works 365 for me, at least.
No. And that's a good point. Like, we'll come back to how your morning routine looks like and how my morning routine looks like, because that's, of course, super interesting. But this is also something that I think is super important: seasonality. So, the seasons of your life determine your morning routine, but also the seasons of the seasons, the weather, for example, the time the sun goes down. So, we have a circadian rhythm which is basically tied to when the sun goes up and the sun goes down. So that's different wherever you, like, it depends on where you live, but if you live where we live in Western Europe, um, you have seasons. So the days become longer and they become shorter. So I I experienced that, like you said, like if you're a mom or a dad, you also want to have you time. So you're not so motivated to go to bed early because now you did everything you had to do. You did your work, you did children, and now you need to go to bed. Hell no. So there's no way I can convince anybody to do that, because of course they want to have their own time, right? Um, but what I do, and I'm not a parent, but it's kind of similar. In the summer, the days are long, so I still want to wake up early, but I also want to stay up late, because I want to enjoy the Indian summer and I want to enjoy social life. But I cannot have both if I don't get some rest in between. So I nap during the summer, because otherwise I cannot play, I cannot participate. So summer is actually much more difficult for me to wake up early. I also tend to let it loose a little bit, right? Because you have to give yourself that freedom to let your disciplines, um, yeah, relax a little bit.
Exactly.
So I'm much more lenient during the summer. When summer ends, I'm going into full productive, high focus mode. I don't care. 9 o'clock, right? It's easy because there's not so much happening in the evening.
Yeah.
But that's how I try to do it. Wake up early, then I have lunch. After lunch, I typically have a nap, about 30 minutes. I never lay down, so I do like a seated power nap. I put some soundscape up on with my Calm app, which is designed to get your brain in like a certain kind of state, or a sound bath or something, and then half an hour refreshed, and then I work until 4, because after 4 I'm definitely not mentally productive anymore, because you also shift your work days. But that helps me to also be able to participate in life in the summer, in the evening, and also just be very selective. Like, when you were young, you would stay out every day until 11 o'clock. But if you're a high performer, you have to choose, right? So maybe you take a few months off during the summer, then go ahead, be on the beach every day. But if you're like, no, I also want to be productive and work on my business or whatever, then maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just go to bed 9:30. And then Thursday maybe not, and Friday maybe not, and right? So have flexibility. This is personally for my life, how I do it.
Yeah. Um, well, ideally, you keep the same time to wake up and to go to bed. But yeah, I totally agree. I'm now in Finland. I spent my summers here. And we have so called white nights. The sun barely goes down.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely like a lot of light,
Yeah,
even late in the evening. So it's very misleading for the body.
yeah,
Very misleading.
yeah,
Because we are so tied to these light cues. We have our internal clock that works even if you are in complete darkness, but it's not exactly 24 hours cycle. So it's a little bit longer. So we really need this light to regulate. And that's why it's important to experience the sunlight in the morning, or just like daylight in the morning, because you need to adjust your internal clock to the what happens around you in the nature. in reality. But yeah, like now it's super difficult. But I decided just to stay in my time, in my usual time, not to shift to finish time for these 2 months. So I go to bed later and I wake up later, but I stay in my natural time because
Is it a
it's
different time
impossible.
zone?
Yeah, that's a different time though. That's
So it's also
Eastern European time here. Yes.
Eastern.
It's one
Oh,
one
okay.
hour, 1 hour, 1 hour plus to Amsterdam.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been to Finland during summer, um, and
So you know that. You
yeah,
know this.
it's
The light.
really strange. Like I was there, it was like 30 degrees, and when you live in a country where during the winter it's cold and dark, you know what happens when spring comes. Everybody's like overly excited. We're like
Exactly.
little chickens, like yeah. But in Finland, that was like on a whole other level. People go crazy. They go crazy, really crazy. People on the street, drunk, and then during the evening, you're out and you're going out, and at some point the sun just stops. Like this
Mm.
just doesn't set anymore,
Yeah,
and you're like, I'm not tired. You're not
exactly.
tired, and you have like this exciting energy, but
Yeah.
as soon as you close the curtains, and I know you have sun blocking curtains in Finland, because otherwise you couldn't,
Yeah.
you cannot reset that rhythm. So when I got to my hotel and I closed my curtains, you're immediately tired. Like
Mm.
immediately, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm so tired. So I can imagine that by you have to regulate light a little bit more,
Exactly.
such as superficial of artificially, right?
Yeah.
By closing the curtains at a certain time, and but it's difficult because of the societal pressure. Everybody wants to have fun, and it's just a few months in Finland. It's just a few months that we can go out, and so yeah, I can imagine that is a challenge.
Yeah, and you're not locking your down in your room a couple of hours before your sleep time just because you need to go to bed on time. No, it's
No,
not simply not happening. We
no,
spend most of our day outside. I even work outside sometimes, and of course you stay there in the evening, so you're kind of like your brain is a little bit messed up. But that's my reality. There is where I'm coming from. I know that the summers like this, our winters are miserable. That's the other way around. It's just
yeah,
always dark.
yeah,
So that's time to enjoy.
yeah. So what would you suggest? So we talked about morning routines, of course, and most of our listeners, they're excited probably about morning routines because they're high performers like us. They want to kick ass, take names, and they've read about morning routines and stuff. But how would you recommend that they integrate a morning routine in a real life
Yeah,
with kids, with
yeah,
summers, with peaks, with moods, with changing objectives and goals and stuff?
yeah.
Do you have a recommendation that you can give, or you're like, no, it's just messy, life is messy, or
Well, I agree. I agree with you on the second part. Life is messy. But I think I mentioned already there it cannot be ideal morning routine, and forget about that. If you really try to stick to your ideal morning routine, you will be just more stressed all the time. The first of all, I think that's important question everyone needs to ask themselves. What is my goal? What do I need this particular morning? Because some mornings you just need to sleep in because your sleep was so bad, it was affected by something, upcoming presentation or something stressful in your life, that you just need to switch off your alarm clock and sleep longer. That's your ideal morning routine for that morning. Then it really depends because, as I said, we have this internal clock. It needs to be set up according to the reality that is happening outside. And the morning daylight is the best thing to signal, okay, that's morning, wake up. But there are others, and this morning daylight is not accessible to us throughout the year, not even in Amsterdam. Forget about Finland. you have to create your own thing. But all these lamps, like some people recommend I sit in front of the lamp, and we had them at the University of Helsinki when I worked there. Well, maybe have some effect, but not so strong. You can activate your body during so in the morning, what do you want? You want to wake up. You want to kind of like start functioning. So you can wake up either with the daylight, and it's possible in the summer. You need to go outside because only outside you can get this level of like what is it called? Illumination, like light intensity. Only outside it's achievable. But what do you do during the winter? So another way to like send the signal, okay, that's morning, we need to function, is physical exercise. This is what I do in the evening when it's too dark and when I wake up. I usually start my day with some yoga, Pilates, something like low effort, because it's not because I'm this late morning person. Exercising early in the morning goes absolutely against my biology, and I do not recommend doing that. So I do something like low impact, but it still helps me to wake up. And then I do the proper exercise later in the day. Then it can be a day where you wake up and the morning time is like where our cortisol level is the highest, because it prepares the body to address the challenges of the day. And cortisol also actually acts as the molecule that synchronizes the internal clocks in our different organs together. So it sends the signal to the whole body, that's morning, guys, let's rise and shine.
It's like Inside Out, the movie.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that on some mornings you already wake up like pumped up because you're stressed. I don't know, we have an important meeting, something upcoming. And especially for high achievers, for founders, this is highly relevant. And then imagine when you're already pumped, you go, I don't know, running or doing cold plunges. This is
counterintuitive. Yeah.
Exactly, and such a bad thing to do. On those mornings, maybe you need to do a meditation or something that calms yourself and sets the parasympathetic tone for the day, so you can address the challenges and not being like, agitated. It's not nothing is wrong with the morning runs and cold plunges, but you really need to understand what effects they have on your body and not just follow those wellness gurus who say, oh, you need to do it every day. And if you want to know more, I can answer. I can tell about those more. But it's just very important that your morning routine is serving some purpose that you decide on.
Yeah. No, definitely agree. So there's a few things that I do from experience, and I think are also pitfalls. So life is seasonal, like I was already saying. So the first thing that you mentioned, you have to know why. Why? What is your goal? Like, why do you want to wake up earlier? Do you want to have space to think? Do you want to be more intentional about how you start your day? Do you want to have space to learn? Do you want to exercise? Like, why? What is the reason? Why do you want to start your morning routine? That's very important, because that's also where your intrinsic motivation will come from. Like, if you are like, hey, I should do this, but you don't have your why clear, you're not going to do it, because there's going to be two voices in your mind. There's one that says like, oh, my bed is kind of comfortable. And the other one is, yes, but you should wake up. And who listens to that other voice? That's like your mom. You're not going to listen to it because it's not fun. I don't want to listen to that one. So it's very important to have that intrinsic motivation, because otherwise you won't follow through and you won't do it. So that's the first part. Second part is life is seasonal. So sometimes you're in high stress mode. Sometimes you're in recovery mode. Sometimes you have business goals you want to accomplish. Sometimes you go to a phase that you want to be clear-minded because there is something on the line. Sometimes, for example, now I want to learn about AI, so I want to have daily study time for AI. So your goals and your objectives will change.
Yeah.
The phases you're in will change. So I always help my clients create an ideal week template on how they would live their life in a way that it supports them. But I always tell them it's not fixed.
Exactly.
This is a guideline. It helps you become aware of what you need. But life is not fixed. So please don't go forcing yourself in this framework at all costs, because then it's going to create stress in your life. That's not the point. But it's a thinking exercise that helps you become aware of these are the elements that I need, and if life is perfect at this moment, this is how I would love to do it. And then you start to get close to that as much as you can. But every quarter or so, I update my weekly template, because now it's a different season. Now I have different objectives, and that means that I'm going to allocate my time differently. So, and the same goes for my morning routine. So my morning routine is part of that whole blueprint. So what you mentioned, I love, because we talk a lot about nervous systems, and you mentioned parasympathetic tone, and you also mentioned that not all advice is good advice, because it also depends on the state that you're in and the phase that you're in and the way you wake up. So from my own life, I also was a personal trainer, and I know that this is also something people do when it comes to exercise. They're like, all right, this is good for you, so this is what I should do. And the same goes for, all right, this is good for you in the morning, cold plunges and that kind of stuff, so this is what I should always do. But if you do that, you're not in tune with your body. You're not listening to the signals. You're just listening to what you've learned. And you have to combine both. So that's why I always love a saying, like a concept. It means think both. It's always, most things in life, both things are true. So in this case, yes, cold plunges is good in the morning. But is it always good in the morning? Is it good when you live in Finland and it's min 30 in the dark winter? Maybe, but maybe not, right? So you always have to take in consideration the context. Back to my personal example. So I have phases in my life that I have high pressure, so a lot of stress and endured stress. I've had those. And I always intuitively switch my morning exercise, because I also do morning exercise, half an hour or 20 minutes. But I normally do high intensity. So you do low impact and low intensity. I mostly do high intensity, but I don't do it every week of every day. And it depends a lot on the state that I am in. So intuitively, if I am in this high stress mode, and if it's a chronic stress mode, so meaning it endures for a while, I wake up and I have resistance towards doing high intensity. And I notice it. I notice there's resistance. I'm thinking I should do this bootcamp thing, but my body is saying, no, I don't want it. And then I can force myself, because this is what I should do, discipline, right? But I tend to listen. And when I go to those phases, I go to yoga. So
Exactly.
it switches with how I'm living. So then I do yoga. Then my morning routine changes from yoga, more meditation, usually longer, because I need some time to balance myself. And at some point, I'm like, all right, this doesn't work anymore. There's surplus energy. There's too much energy. And then I'm not going to force myself doing yin yoga in the morning. Because then it's just I'm going to get agitated and frustrated. And that's the other sign. That's saying like, hey man, you got too much energy here to burn. You need to go burn it, and you need to go, right? And then I go shift back to my high intensity work routines in the morning. So I'm happy that you brought it up, the nervous system. This also ties beautifully into the seasonality of life, seasonality of seasons, your goals, your objectives, right? I think those are the most important ingredients when you start thinking about creating a morning routine at all. What is your reason for having one?
Yeah, I'm super grateful to you that you brought this aspect of seasonality, because I think this is the key, and this is the key to true performance. I think the biggest problem nowadays that we treat ourselves like high output computers, and we just think like, okay, this is like the perfect input and we get the perfect output 100% of the time. This is not how the human body and human brain operates. Absolutely not. And I think you can achieve your highest potential only by attending to your seasonality, to the differences. I wanted to add to what you said a few things. The first of all, I think it's very important to have some experience with yourself, because in the beginning, I think it might be just when you are in this habit forming phase, it might be that it's just too hard for you if you decided to do the morning exercise because everything is sore, you're not train your body yet. In this first phase, the approach should be different. We are talking now about the approach when you know yourself well, when you already exercise throughout, I don't know, many years and your body is trained. And then you wake up and you don't feel like doing what you usually do. And I totally relate to the fact that you do your high intensity exercise in the morning because you sound like you're a natural early bird. You're a morning person. This is the best time for you to do the exercise. I know that for myself, the best time for high intensity exercise is 5 in the evening. Right after I finish work, it's perfect time. I usually go for a run on some high intensity training, weight training also, all about this time. So what was your question? Sorry, I didn't pick up the question. I just wanted to comment on
No, just
on what
finish.
you said.
The question
Yeah.
was, why do you have one? But go.
Why do I have one what?
A morning routine.
Yeah.
But you were saying, so we're talking about something important, seasonality and high
Yeah.
performance. So in my world, I am big on seasons. And we call it, so I always teach my clients that they have an elite performance cycle. It's like a wave. So if you draw a wave on a piece of paper, like a wave from the sea, that's the elite performance cycle. So you have high output phases, and then you have recovery phases. Just as you, as athletes train. Like you train, high output, then you need recovery after you had your match or whatever. So those plot to your goals and the seasons of your life. Like when you're 20 something, your seasons would be different than you were 40 something. So I think seasonality and seasons is something that is a concept very worth remembering, that it applies to everything in life. Everything over across all spectrums. Let me plug in my computer because otherwise I'm getting nervous.
I wanted to add. Is it a good time to continue?
Yeah. I'm listening.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Like 100%. On the cycles, we can have a separate episode. Because,
yeah, we should have a separate one.
There is so much to discuss about that one, and it's so important to understand that if you want to achieve your top performance. About the seasons, for example, I just know that imagine that's winter. The sunrise is very late. You wake up when it's still dark. I usually do this, like yoga and some meditation, because I cannot go outside. It's still dark. There is no point of going outside. While, for example, I'm here now. I'm now in my summer cottage in the middle of the forest by the lake. I don't need to meditate. I don't need to have this formal practice of meditation, because I just pour myself a coffee. I go to the wooden deck by the lake and I just sit there for 20 minutes.
That sounds nice.
I just sit there, I just drink my coffee slowly, and I just look at the waves on the lake or at the birds. You don't need the formal meditation on days like that, because this is your meditation. This is around you. I don't take any phone, Apple Watch, nothing is allowed on the deck. It's just me and my coffee, my husband sometimes. It's just, the pure meditation. And that's what I'm saying about the seasonality first, and then knowing your why. I really like how you put it. Know the why behind your morning routine. What do you want to achieve? I'm coming here after a prolonged stretch of hard work, so I'm a little bit overstrained, I would say. to recalibrate the nervous system and to give myself some rest and the headspace to start thinking again about new ideas and stuff. This is the phase I'm in now. So I don't need cold plunge in the morning. I don't need to, I do them when I need to guarantee that I will have like highly focused time, focused like a few hours. That's not what I do now. I'm mostly focused on reading and other things of activity. I don't need to sit in front of my computer in the morning, so I don't need to do the cold plunge. I need to relax. I need to get in my creative state, and that's my routine now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's beautiful. Like that's how, like for me, um, the reason why I do most of the things that I do is because I want to feel like I am living at my highest potential. And that's a very good feeling. But if I'm not, it's not a good feeling. So I'm very motivated to eat well, to move well, to sleep well, to surround myself with the people that inspire me, to have a job that is meaningful to me, where I can live my creativity, because those are all part of my happiness blueprint. So I tie everything I do, that's my why. That's always my why. That's why my business is called Max Your Life Today. For me, that's life. Life is living your life and looking back at the end of your life and say, wow, I didn't know I had this in me. Not because I had to prove something, because I don't care about that, but I'm curious about what lives inside of me, and I'm super motivated to live it. So that's for me always my motivation. If we go to, this is of course very nice, but of course there's also a darker side of it, which is that I've been through depression, I've been through burnout. So I also know that if I don't take good care of me, the worst will come out and I will suffer. So that has always been my motivation. That's the middle ground. It's like I know that if my foundation is right, foundation is lifestyle, everything has to do with lifestyle. If it's right, the sky is the limit. If it's off, risk. There's risk, right? So that's why most of my habits are fixed habits. So they're tied into goals that I have, like temporarily, like productivity goals or business goals or whatever. But I always have a morning routine, right? It just changes, and maybe this is a good way of giving something practical to our listeners, and also try to go towards the end, because I use a framework. So you also mentioned in the beginning that there's a lot of gurus and people try to do their morning routines according to the advice of the gurus, but there is no such thing as one size fits all. So that's why I like frameworks. So frameworks are exactly what it sounds like. They're a framework, but the elements within the framework are not fixed. They are flexible. So, for example, there's two frameworks that are popular: Miracle Morning and the 5 a.m. Club. So the Miracle Morning is by Hal Roth, and the 5 a.m. Club is by Robin Sharma, and they both have frameworks, and they're both very similar. So the framework that I use is the one by Robin Sharma, and he uses one that is called the 20-20-20 principle. So 20 minutes doing this, 20 minutes doing that, and 20 minutes doing this. So, and the buckets are movement, learning, and growth, something like that. So, or movement, reflection, and growth. So, movement can be yoga, movement can be walking, movement can be high intensity. It's movement. So, but movement is a part of your morning routine. But what's in that bucket can change. Reflection can be meditation. It can be journaling. It can be deep thinking. It can be voice noting. Doesn't matter, but it's still a part of your morning routine is thinking and feeling, reflecting. And then you have growth, and growth sometimes for me is reading, sometimes it's YouTube, sometimes it's a podcast, and sometimes it's journaling because I want to think about my ideas. I want to work on my ideas, right? So I love frameworks because they give you a framework, a direction. It's like those sketches for children that they get a sketch and then they can fill in it with colors.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's
Coloring
called.
books.
A coloring book, exactly. Those are not the words that I use often. So, coloring books. So a coloring book is basically the same. It's a framework. It's already filled in, but you can paint it. You can paint it however you like. So, do you have a similar framework that you abide by or that you use, or is there a framework to, or like a structure to your morning routine now that you think of it, or?
Well, I guess because I'm coming from a neuroscience background, I must admit, I never read any books on the morning routines. I listened to some podcasts and I know what wellness guru said, but I guess I just have enough knowledge to form mine. When you offered this 2020, I think it's more or less what I do, maybe with the exception that I don't dedicate specific time for learning in the early morning because I just don't have time for that. Uh, yeah, I think movement, as I said, movement is the best signal besides the daylight that you can send to your body to wake it up. And it feels good, it feels good.
Yeah.
Because
You've been a dead man or a dead woman all night.
Exactly. You've been dead. And I think it's highly important for me, if you're not an early morning person, it needs to be reachable. It needs to be affordable. It needs to be something that you don't need to change. I used to do a lot of high intensity early in the morning when I was younger. Well, I had probably more energy than I do have now. And I didn't have children maybe back then. So now I just simply no willpower can overrule my need to have a slower morning. That's why I choose my movement accordingly. Then I think, so it's for me like this activation piece, movement, daylight, if you have access to that. I think it's also, so for me it would be activation. And then it would be resetting your nervous system depending on what you need from it. It's either calming down or the other way around, activating it. With a cold plunge, I have this cold plunge barrel at home, and I do it when I really need to kind of boost my focus. If I plan something like I write an article in the morning, for example, which I usually do, then I might use it. So some kind of movement, activation, or deactivation when I need to calm myself down. And yeah, I think I missed the learning part. What else?
So how does it look like now? Reflection, yeah?
Yeah, I think the reflection is the important part. And this is something that I don't do formally. I don't do journaling or stuff, but I try to think about things in the morning because your mind is fresh. You're not affected. There is no bias usually. And you tend to look at things differently. They have this saying in children's stories that you're wiser in the morning than in the evening. I can relate to that. You look at things absolutely differently after you have had a chance to process your emotions and stuff that happened to you the previous day.
Yeah.
So you wake up fresh. I think reflection is a good one. But I must say, because I have kids and because my mornings are not fully belong to me, these routines are not fixed and not that formal. I don't have 20 minutes for this, 20 minutes for that. It depends. I just keep them in mind. They're a little bit more, I think during the winter, they're a little bit more strict because winter is difficult. You don't want to wake up and it's dark. So then it's more or less, I have this
more discipline.
15, 20 minutes of exercise and 10 minutes of meditation. Then it's more discipline is required. During the summer, I'm a little bit more flexible. But I really like this because I live in the nature. I can afford that one as well. Um, this having coffee outside, that's an important morning routine,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't sound fancy.
Yeah.
But I send, especially on tough times when I have a lot of work, a lot of travels. I travel a lot for work. That's why I often need to reset my nervous system down, not
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I like looking at that by sitting in the morning and having coffee outside, not rushing, not having your coffee on the go, or just like, drinking it quickly like Italians do. I sent myself a signal, my brain is signal, we are safe. We don't need to survive. We can afford this luxury of sitting outside and drinking coffee, even if I know that it's 10 minutes that I have for that. But I'm tricking my brain to believe that it's not the
Yeah.
case. We have all the time in the world to just sit outside and have a coffee.
Yeah. And with that, I want to highlight a few benefits and reasons why I think morning routine are so powerful. And you touched on a few without knowing, I think. So first of all, you set the tone for the day. So most people rush. They get out of bed too late, then they don't really have the time to do everything they need to do, so they're already rushing. Then they get out of their house too late, so have to run for the metro or the train, or they're in the car and they're in the car with everybody else because they're too late. And so you start in a rush. You start in that high activation nervous system, sympathetic fight and flight mode, and that's where you stay the whole day.
Exactly.
Your brain is not functioning properly because it's down regulated, because when you are in that state, your brain is more short-term focused, it's higher, it's likely to be more impulsive. So you're not set up for high performance at all, and you're definitely not set up for happiness, and it's also not healthy because it's a chronicle. It gets chronicle because you wake up the same way every day, right? So one of the biggest reasons why I recommend a morning routine is because it allows you to consciously set the tone for the day. It's like saying to life, this is my life, and I determine how I wake up, and I determine when I'm ready for the world. But before that, that's me, right? And it makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel empowered, and what you do also further uh, um, adds to this. So, for example, what you feed your mind also sets you up for the day. It primes your mind, it primes your day. So, if you read the news, this is how you're going to experience the day, with things that are not so fun in the world. If you start with social media, you already outsource your thinking. Somebody hacked your mind already, and somebody hacked your ideas already. But if you start with something positive, or something that helps you grow, or something that nourishes you, or excites you, you're in a different state. You're like excited about life. You're inspired. You have ideas. You have a smile on your mind. Maybe you'll dance in the morning, right? So you set also your mood, and with that also your frame of mind. So the last thing, it's not the last thing, but there's so many, is habit forming. So waking up is a habit. You do it every day and without fail. You wake up every day. So a trick of creating a new habit is tying it to an existing habit. Waking up is the habit, and you tie certain kinds of behavior to that habit. So it's already pre-programmed, in a sense, to be a container for consistent behavior. That's why during COVID, I was exercising every day, and I stay fit because I wake up, exercise every day, 20 minutes. If you do that the whole year round, you'll be crazy fit. And it's easy because it's tied to your morning routine, and it's just 20 minutes. The last thing that you mentioned, and this is one I think high performers need to know and need to take into account. It has to also be enjoyable. So you mentioned you look forward, you get on the deck, there's no phones, there's no noise, there's no nothing, there's just water, it's beautiful, there's birds, and there's your coffee. It's a moment of bliss.
Exactly.
right? It's a moment of bliss.
Exactly. Exactly.
And life is about those moments. So don't be that high performer that's hacking the hell out of everything out of your life without having any fun. So try to find those routines that are also enjoyable. Those magic moments. So I have a similar thing. I live in a forest kind of area. So and I live in an apartment complex. So three stories up, and I can open up the whole front of my building. So in the morning, there's nobody. There's no sound. There's no cars. There's nothing. And there is just birds. Today I woke up and I was like, what do I see? A woodpecker. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I see a woodpecker and I see a woodpecker, right? So those are the magical moments of the morning that can also help you set yourself up. So don't just hack your life for productivity. Don't do just everything that the gurus are telling you. Also make sure it's an enjoyable thing, because in the end, this morning is the only one that you got, because tomorrow is going to be a whole other morning, right? So we don't get to relive moments. So yeah, I think that's important too, to make sure it's enjoyable.
100%.
So I think this is a good point of wrapping it up. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to add, speaking of performance, that we don't live to perform. We live to have a good life, right? So the performance should be feeding your good life and your happiness, not the other way around.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. And that's of course my whole positioning, right? So for high performance, creating stuff is part of the happiness blueprint. But the game of life for everybody is living well and living a life that is worth living, that makes you feel fulfilled. It needs to be fulfilling to you, right? It could be so. Don't live for somebody else. Don't live for achievements. Don't live for accolades. Make sure that how you're living is fulfilling. That's the game. That's the whole game. So thank you for adding that, Anna. That's definitely something. I think we always come back to this at the end of the podcast.
Well,
It
that's
doesn't matter
now
what topic we have. We always come back to this point.
because it's true,
It is
right?
true. This is the essence of life. Yeah.
Exactly. Two people after burnout saying that.
Yep.
And,
We know people. So maybe a good one to close off. So there's a few topics that we talked about. So maybe we can already like make a little bit of a short list of topics that we could talk about, and then anybody listening can also mention in the comments which one they would like to hear us talk about next. So I heard journaling. I think that's an interesting one, because I'm like you. I don't follow the typical advices on journaling, so I think this is an interesting one. The elite performance cycle, the seasonality of
Yeah.
high performance, I think is an interesting one too. Is there any ones that you want to add?
Well, I think we can talk more about seasonality.
Seasonality, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But in what
But
context?
well, just in general, that we tend to skip some seasons, that we tend to appreciate some other seasons um, more than others, and I think that's probably. But let's listen
Like
to the
seasons of
audience.
life kind of thing.
Yeah, seasons of life and seasons of yeah, like yeah, exactly.
Got it. All right, I like it. I think those three, and I'm adding some more to our list. But I think, of course, productivity. So, like productivity, especially now in the AI age, is like the holy grail. But again, why do you want to be productive? So I think we should reframe productivity. I do that all the time in my workshop on time, focus, and energy management. But I think that's also a nice topic to talk about, like uh, productivity in general, but not in the traditional way of how do I become more productive. No, how do you become more effective in things that matter? Um, that would be my definition of productivity. All right, Anna, it was a pleasure, as always.
Yeah.
live from Finland, from her cottage, as it looks like. And I'm, of course, live from Amsterdam, from my beautiful virtual studio. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up. If you like to know more about Anna or you like to know more about me, I'll leave the links in the show notes. I post all of my videos on Substack. That's basically where I group everything that I share. So that's podcasts, that's notes, that's blogs, that's these kind of videos. So if you want to start your journey in becoming a aligned high performer, that's the place to be. Where do you want them to go to find out more about you, Anna?
Same Substack and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I've been posting it for a little bit longer than on Substack. My
Nice.
website.
So just go to Substack. You will find her name on my Substack and my name on her Substack. So you'll get there any way you like. All right, Anna. Until next time.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Have a good one.
Ciao.
Ciao.